that issue needs to be addressed. We've also got the problem of just taxation itself. The federal income tax is a bad tax. It's not a legal tax. The Supreme Court, once in our history at least, has ruled that it was not constitutional. If a court had the courage or the the constitutional knowledge, or whatever is holding them back from ruling on this issue, maybe they just need an opportunity. They ought to rule again that the federal income tax is unconstitutional.
Absolutely.
It's an improper tax.
It's just hard to believe that a state would have to pass a resolution saying the state of Oklahoma hereby claims sovereignty under the 10th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States over all powers not otherwise enumerated and granted to the federal government by the Constitution of the United States. And you serve notice and demand of the federal government as our agent to cease and desist effective immediately mandates that are beyond the scope of these constitutionally delegated powers, like federalizing local police. I mean, folks, the government is out of control. The federal government is like a neighbor who's in your house telling you what to do. I mean, it is out of control. And we'll be right back with State Rep Charles Key, a great guy. We'll cover some other subjects as well.
Waging war on corruption. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
State Rep Charles Key is our guest. You talk about courage. From day one, when there was the questions coming out with the Oklahoma City bombing, which was an inside job from the beginning, he was there questioning, exposing, speaking out. And now in hindsight, talking 12 years later or more, it's just all coming out. It is all coming out in a big way. So I want to shift gears into that for the rest of the interview with our guest today and any other subjects he wants to talk about. But as a state rep, for all our listeners in Oklahoma, please support him. I know he was happy to be out of politics. Why did you get back in?
Well, it was just kind of circumstantial. There was some people that asked me to run when the guy that was in there just chose not to run, kind of somewhat at the last minute. And that was just that simple. There was another guy running that some of them didn't think he was a conservative, and they said, we want a conservative in there, and we've got to have a conservative, and we want you to run. And so I thought about it, prayed about it, and boom, did it. And they did the same thing they did to me before. They just blew me out of the water about the Oklahoma City bombing, but we prevailed, and God gave us a victory. So that's just it.
Yeah, they attack you when most Oklahomans I talk to know what's going on. I mean, did that backfire on them, that the story's gotten out now and that made your competitors look stupid?
Yeah, I think it is. I think, it's a lot like this Oklahoma City bombing case is a lot like JFK and a lot of other cases that we could enumerate and you talk about on your program many times. As time goes by, more the truth comes out. People have time, the emotional part of it, subsides, it goes away, and people have a chance to hear more, think more, and get more facts, and they realize that there was a cover-up, and that's what's happened in the Oklahoma City bombing case. I guess you probably had Jesse Trinidad on your program.
Oh, yes.
And that guy, talk about a bulldog and a courageous man. He has continued to keep this thing alive, and he has helped continue to verify what all of us were saying back in the beginning.
Well, that's it. 10, 11 years ago, everything you said has turned out, your angle on it has turned out to be right. In fact, break down the Jesse Trinidad case for those that may have forgotten, because that was probably 6-8 months ago we were really talking about this. I mean, break down all the new things that have been confirmed.
Well, it's been hard for me to keep on top of it like I did the bombing case when I was involved in that, but I can hit the highlights. Jesse Trinidad is an attorney up in the Salt Lake City area. He had a brother who died in Oklahoma City in August of 95. The bombing happened in April. And his brother died in a federal transfer center that happened to be in my district, by the way, right next to the airport. And when the family realized that he didn't commit suicide like the Bureau of Prisons claimed, so they filed a lawsuit. As time went by, and they were able to force documents out of the government through the Freedom of Information Act, they found out that it was related to the Oklahoma City bombing somehow. What happened was some federal investigators, FBI, and who knows who else, thought that he was a suspect in the Oklahoma City bombing case, and they beat him to death, literally. And so the family filed suit. They eventually won that suit. and the Trinidad and the family have not let go. They've become impassioned, not just...
Let me just add, he also had electrical burns all over him.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And they're impassioned about this, not just because they wanted to bring justice to what really happened in regards to their brother and son's murder, but also because they found out how terribly screwed up this Oklahoma City bombing case was, and how the truth was really being covered up. So Jesse Trinidad, and we should also give kudos to a federal judge up in the Salt Lake area. I think his last name is Kimball. Has not let the Justice Department and the FBI off the hook easy. Have made them have to live under the laws that the rest of us have to live under.
And he said things like, "This is a cover-up." I mean, it's amazing to actually have a good federal judge. Yeah,
even the Judge Maich that presided over McVeigh and Nichols' trials even made a couple of comments like that back early on. So there's no question about that it was a major cover-up, and there were other people involved, and they had at minimum, a level of prior knowledge that something was going to happen. And, there were government informants inside this circle or these circles of individuals that were, going to carry this out, or they were participating in it. And, the list just goes on.
But how could you be criticized when you had grand jurors and people coming to you saying there's other bombers and I'm being told to shut up? I mean, that's your job as a state rep to speak out.
Well, there are folks that they want to go along. They're more interested in climbing up a ladder, whether it's politically or corporately or whatever. And that's what it gets down to.
Stay there. I want to run through the basics of what you know about the Oklahoma City bombing and who you think is really behind it and involved. We've got a clearer picture today than we've ever had before, and we'll take calls on the resolution, throwing the feds out, redeclaring state liberty. 1-800-259-9231 is the toll-free number to call in.
'Cause he rules the earth, he can do with it as he please. And if things don't change soon, he will. For a man has invented his doom. First step was touching the moon. Now there's a woman.
Charles Key's our guest. I'm very thankful for his time today. Steve, Greg, John, Charles, many others. We're going to go to your calls here in a few minutes for State Rep Charles Key. When he's done in the State House, we need to send him to Washington. We need some good people in Washington. There's only Ron Paul and a few others up there. And Republicans and conservatives' names have been destroyed thanks to Bush tripling the size of government. Now we're looking at Barack Obama or McCain. Charles, before we get back in Oklahoma City and take calls, sometimes you got to wonder, the elites are just running this country into the ground, and I'm just wondering if there's any hope the way things are going.
There's hope. I think there's always hope, but I feel the same way. I get discouraged and down, but as long as we have a certain amount of freedom, and we still do in this country. But back to the 10th Amendment, you were talking about the Oklahoma City bombing and how they could attack somebody or criticize them for just asking questions and wanting some truth. Well, look at McCain-Feingold and a lot of the other things they've done over the past few years to just try and control your ability to speak freely, like on this radio program, because there are those that don't want us to even talk about this, and that's what they do. One of the things they do is they will attack you publicly and call you all kinds of names, and spin off the truth and tell a lot of untruths. And since the Oklahoma City bombing, just look at the legislation that's been passed to restrict what you can say and where you can say it. There's, what do they call them, speech-free zones. If you get in some of those zones when there's a presidential motorcade or the president's there or some other political activity that they don't want any protesters to be around, what do? They'll haul you off and throw you in jail.
Well, look at Nancy Pelosi. The first thing they did after the Clintons bombed OKC, after the feds did, the first thing they did was say, we need to bring back the fairness doctrine and reduce free speech on talk radio. They blamed talk radio. And now Pelosi says she wants to bring that back.
Yeah. And I think, I hear more and more people. What's been interesting in my experience coming back into the legislative political realm this last couple of years is when I went out and knocked doors in 2006 running for this seat again, it was very, very surprising to me and encouraging, very encouraging, how many people going door to door, and these are Republicans, are the only doors I knocked, that are very aware of what's going on in this country. There's a great awakening going on.
Well, see, that's what I was going to ask you next. Whereas things are getting darkest before the dawn, I'm saying they're bad. I'm finding the same thing, that people finally are knowing, they're finally listening. Go ahead and finish your story. Tell me what happened when you knocked on those doors.
People are aware. They're getting their information from someplace other than the nightly news and the newspaper, and they're starting to find out that they're getting lied to, and there's something really rotten in Denmark, so to speak. And they're waking up. They understand. A lot of this is pretty obvious stuff. Like when you've got the immigration problems like we have, and you've got a government that refuses to do something about it.